In this chapter, we'll learn about OpenStack, the leading cloud operating system. We'll also discuss basic cloud services, like Elastic Cloud Server and Object Storage Service. Finally, we'll see how these major parts of the cloud interact with the tools used by cloud administrators. Here's an overall view of this lesson. On the bottom left side are the parts of the cloud we discussed earlier, the cloud's physical hardware infrastructure, the virtual machines, and the hypervisor. Above that is the Cloud OS, OpenStack, and its components. We'll take a look at these in detail in a moment. And on the top left are cloud services, what the cloud provides to users. We'll also look at this in a moment too. Now on the right, you can see the column called Tools. As you can see, cloud can be super complicated, so tools are what cloud admins need to operate the cloud more smoothly. These tools are similar to what you see on your own PC. They're like the diagnostics and other utilities that help you identify hardware problems or check if your drivers are up to date. In cloud, tools are used to identify faulty hard drives, to back up logs, upgrade systems, support hardware replacement, and perform other admin tasks. Now at the beginning of this lesson, I mentioned two services. As a cloud user, services are the things you actually pay for. Let me give you a few examples. Elastic Cloud Server, or ECS, is about rapidly scaling up your computing resources according to you or your organization's needs. As we saw earlier, elastic scaling is what companies use to deal with service peaks, like when there's a big online sale. There's a service called auto-scaling, which is similar, but the process is more automated compared to ECS. There's also VPC, or Virtual Private Cloud. It's a service used for network isolation, basically using a virtual private network to access cloud services. As you can see, there are many services on the cloud. This is probably why people get paid so much to manage clouds. It's complicated. Now it's time to talk more about OpenStack. Among all the layers here, it's probably the one that's newest to you. As mentioned, it's the most popular operating system for clouds. Like Linux, Android, and many other major software platforms, OpenStack is open source. Open source software refers to software that is developed collaboratively by people all around the world, so developers can see all the source code and contribute their own. This is typically done on dedicated sharing platforms. Launched in 2010, OpenStack is managed by the Open Infrastructure Foundation. Over 500 companies worldwide contribute to OpenStack's maintenance and upgrades. In many ways, OpenStack operates like an online store. It manages products, such as computing, storage, and network resources, that are sold for use on the cloud. The products that it sells are allocated by hypervisors, like KVM that we discussed in the previous chapter. OpenStack is a service at the IaaS layer, and it is used to manage infrastructure. It simplifies the cloud deployment process and provides good scalability. OpenStack consists of multiple key components that communicate through message queues. These components work together to implement all kinds of operations that make use of OpenStack's capabilities. Over time, contributors have added more and more components to improve OpenStack's functionality. The core component of OpenStack is the computing component Nova, which is used to virtualize resources and create various virtual machines. Nova is the OpenStack component that oversees CPU and memory resources and allocates these resources to VMs. If Nova sounds similar to KVM, which we talked about in the previous chapter, that's because it is. They do the same thing, but at different layers in the cloud. This is the layer that cloud admins see, whereas everything else happens behind the scenes at lower layers. Some people see Nova as a KVM interface that manages VM lifecycles. Unlike KVM, Nova focuses on scheduling. While handling computing requests from users, Nova communicates with other cloud components and selects which host's hypervisor to use. But in fact, Nova doesn't actually do the machine virtualization itself. Then we have components that manage storage. OpenStack's block storage component is called Cinder. It's designed to create and manage a service that provides persistent data storage for cloud computing applications. Cinder manages where data is stored, whether that's on a local disk or in a remote location somewhere on the cloud network. Then we have OpenStack's network component, called Neutron. Neutron provides the virtual network function in the cloud computing environment. It helps flexibly divide physical networks and provides an independent network environment for each tenant in a multi-tenant environment. The last component I'll mention is the authentication component, Keystone. Keystone is like a doorman or manager that has the keys to all of OpenStack's services. Keystone not only identifies who you are as a user, but also what you can do. These are two different things. First, Keystone checks whether you can log into the system at all. Secondly, it checks whether you have the permission to process certain requests. I know that was a lot, so let's stop right there. In the next lesson, we'll talk about where cloud is heading in the future.